Down to Chat is brought to you by swag.com. We are going to be talking more about employee retention in this podcast. And I think one of the super important parts of keeping employees is making them feel valued. It's core to company culture. It's core to making people feel welcome. And so many brands pull out this janky old swag that people don't want to keep. Swag.com is exciting because they carry thousands of incredible products, from custom tech to apparel like North Face and Yeti and Nike and so much more. Swag.com works with 5,000 companies like Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, TikTok, Google, Apple, and a whole bunch of small startups. What the most exciting thing for me on swag.com is that you can create these custom gift templates where when somebody joins your company, they fill out a form. They go onto this landing page. I know Cody's a big landing page guy. Hop on a landing page and you can actually, brand this landing page, and it feels like your company's swag selection page, which is absolutely awesome. And you can ship 50 different swag boxes to 50 different addresses on their site. So excited for that. If you use promo code D2C10 at checkout, you get 10% off your first order. Check it out, swag.com.
The campaign side, the gifting side, those things are what we're really good at. And so we'll continue to do those things. And then over time, we've started to get a little bit better at email, a little bit better at SMS, which are, I guess, like more traditional direct to consumer, but to us feel like a more natural fit than a random person seeing like a hoodie without like really understanding the brand on an ad.
Hey squad, we're back. This is an exciting one. Anyone that's watched any of these podcasts, I think we're like, what are we, 7, 8?
This is probably 8 or 9,
like
I forget.
I stopped guessing at this point. Yeah, but every single episode, if you watch on Spotify, you'll see visual and you'll see me always wearing something Madhappy. I'm not like a huge brand guy. It's pretty funny how when people are like, what are your favorite brands? I generally can't think of many because I'm like whatever's cheap kind of energy. But there's something about Madhappy that really excites me, mostly around the mission. And I think Peiman and I connected probably almost 2 years ago now. A couple of months in after I started Olipop, I didn't know of Madhappy until Olipop, just because Olipop was very LA, very namaste, very yoga. Came across Madhappy, connected with Peiman, talking about retention, and I'm a stan, as they would say. So I'm thrilled to have Peiman on, and we'll have a ton to talk about. But thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here, and thanks for the kind words. Love it.
Cody, you want to jump right into it?
Yeah, so I'll say, like, I'm not super familiar. We don't usually do like full backgrounds on the show, but I'm not super familiar with Madhappy. And kind of, as I just told you before we were recording, like, now I feel like I'm just seeing you guys everywhere. I feel like I can't escape it. It's literally all Eli wears and talks about, and same with a bunch of other people in our office. And, now I'm kind of starting to see it everywhere. But what I am seeing, I think, is amazing. I think it seems like you guys are building differently. It seems like you're not just doing the same cookie cutter spending on Facebook ads as all other DTC brands are doing. So I guess I'd love to just start with like a little bit of backstory of the brand and kind of where you're at today.
Totally, yeah. My quick background, so I was actually born in Italy. My parents immigrated from Iran in the 70s because there was a revolution there. I moved to LA when I was 6 with my brother who was 4. We grew up in LA. I went to school at Michigan, and my brother and one of my good friends, Mason, were always into fashion and not as much into school. And they had worked on a bunch of different projects together. It's super easy to make clothes in LA. And so they were doing that a bunch. And Mason was one of our first friends that like we knew that really struggled with his mental health. And my first friend that I ever knew that went to therapy. And in a low moment, he had thought of this name, Madhappy, sometime in like 2016. And the idea and the message behind the name was like, you can be optimistic despite like the challenges we all face in life. And I think all three of us, that name was like super powerful. And we were like, wow, like there's really like something here. And we didn't know what that really meant. But for them, they sort of wanted to get it into like a physical form, and apparel felt like an easy way to to do that because they had been doing that for a little bit. And we started with this like really small brand with this name, and of course now it's grown to be much bigger, but I think it still holds that same message around like that optimism and that feeling that a lot of the brands we grew up with in the streetwear space are very dark, negative, closed off. Ours is like a lot more approachable, a lot more for everyone, guys, girls, really everyone. And then of course, like we've built it up quite a bit over the past couple of years. It's been a little over 5 years now, but really with that same idea, right? We didn't raise money to start, and so it forced us to like think a little bit differently. And then even on the Facebook side, like never really like forayed down that path too much. It just didn't feel as on brand, or we felt like we could spend money in a different way that was more unique to what we were doing. And now still feels super early on this like long journey, but yeah, that's like the initial spark that sort of started it all.
Payman, question for people that, I think a lot of people have kind of, especially people that are not in LA, have seen you pop up like on the East Coast in the last year or two or three. In LA, you've been a little bit larger for a longer period of time. But I think what people kind of don't see is how you went from this brand that you were kind of three friends making in LA to being worn by LeBron and, like some larger celebrities. How did that even happen? Like, how did people kind of find out about your mission and vision and get bought in?
I think from very early on, like, people were drawn to the name, the product. We were doing some unique things like the stitching on your hood and the colors and just the vibe. And as soon as we started talking about mental health, we saw that like one, like, wow, like 2017, no brands were talking about it. No celebrities were even talking about it really back then. And a lot of our audience was super open to that conversation. And so we were like, maybe that could be our path, right? We're a brand about optimism, and talking about mental health seems like a very natural thing that we could help spearhead, similar to how like a Nike did with physical health. And so that message early on really resonated with people. And I think celebrities or people in general, when they would come across it, they were much more open to a brand that was doing something new in that sense. And I think first, a lot of people in the music space are wearing it because I think there's a deep inherent tie with like music and mental health. And then yeah, we were fortunate to just like do some cool partnerships, have some of the right people wearing it, like you said, and one thing leads to another. But that's really how I think it began.
And when you getting guys like LeBron and celebrities that are wearing it, like, is that a strategy, or is that an influencer strategy, or are they actually customers and they're just loving what you're making?
I think a bit of both. I mean, we definitely have people that we feel like are very aligned with the brand that we would love to see in the brand. And so we do try to, see if they're interested, see if they do want to wear and support the brand. And then happens the other way as well, of just like they love the brand, they're buying it, and then want to get involved in a deeper way. And LeBron's a great example, Lewis Hamilton, just all of these different people that we feel like are great representations of like optimism, and really do like open up more, talk about their struggles in different ways, and so yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
I think what
What's that like? Like, real talk. Like, what's that like to like go on Instagram and like not expect it and see like LeBron or somebody like wearing your shit? Like, how cool is that?
Definitely like the first time I saw LeBron, or really like anyone wearing it for the first time, it's super super cool. And for us, starting the brand, not really having this like big like master plan when we started it, it definitely feels good. And as you guys know, just like any startup is so hard, it's so much work, and there's a lot of like ups and downs, and the downs can feel pretty low at times. And so I think like it does help to have those sparks and to feel like that excitement around people that you admire wearing the
I think
product.
what's fun and fascinating to me about the brand and what resonated to me is not the like, oh, everything's great energy, but the journey aspect. Like, I think that some of the people that wear it are pretty straightforward. I mean, like for me, Casey Neistat's a great example of somebody who's been pretty straightforward online about the things he's gone through and kind of the mental health being a journey. And I think that resonates as a brand more so to me than like obviously the conversation is important, but the conversation being like, it's not all about it, you know, not everything's, you know, butterflies and roses, but it's a journey. And I think just being cognizant of that and destigmatizing therapy and getting, you know, journaling to be sexy. And I think, you know, some of the other kind of like love yourself energy that you've put on billboards. I don't think there are many billboards in LA that are, you know, telling people to love themselves. I think that resonates. And I think for me, at least the most exciting thing is that most of the people that wear it are maybe just wearing it because they love the style, but that alone is a message that's going around. And I think people just making that a conversation is fucking amazing. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Casey, and again, he's such a great example of someone who, you know, he's been through a lot. He has an amazing story and like so many like ups and downs, and we're working on having him on the podcast hopefully soon. But he, you know, when he wore it, that was super random, and got to connect after the fact, and I think you're right. I think we lead in a very optimistic way, but we're not saying that like everything is all good, you know, and I think those are two separate things. And I think a lot of people also approach mental health in a very negative way as well, which is like leading with like words, you know, like anxiety and depression, but just like trying to like sell that. And that's not really our vibe either, you know. And I think we talk about all those things. We have the local optimist, which is more of our like mental health, like content hub, where like really everything's talked about. We have the podcast. But yeah, you know, I think even in something like you said, like the billboards, like they're all supposed to make you feel good, right? Like treat yourself like someone you love, you know, let go to grow. All of the messages are really supposed to come from like a place of like optimism.
Love it. Cody, do you want to fuck around and go tactical a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm curious, just without knowing again too much, like what can you tell us on the brand of about the brand, of the size, how many employees, like whatever you feel comfortable sharing, and like what's your mix? Are you purely? I know you have, you know, your own store in Cali, or that's a pop up. Are you just DTC? Do you have any retail? Like what can you share with us there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've been all direct so far, meaning online and then our pop-ups.
Okay.
So we've always had a strong belief in like retail for our brand, but so far
Okay.
none of that's been through wholesale. And I think as we've continued to grow, you know, we were like 10 people at the beginning of COVID. We're right around like 25-ish now. We're still
Awesome.
trying to
Cool.
keep the team relatively small, but I think for us, like we want to continue to grow the ecom business in the US. We're starting to like think through like what does this look like in some of the overseas market that the brand's begun to grow in. And then on the
Okay.
retail side, very similarly, like what are the right places that will have actual permanent flagship stores? And then what are the places where we want to have some of the temporary stuff? And then lastly, like what are the right stores that could sell Madhappy in the future? You know, I think it's all a balanced mix of finding like the right partners in the right places. We've never really been like we're never going to do something, and we'll just find
Okay.
like hopefully the right way to do it. Um, so that's how we've done it so far. In terms of the ecom and our retail owned channel, like all of our marketing is really done like on the campaign side. So it's like, you know, how do we shoot something? How do we tell the story? And then like who's wearing the product and those sorts of things. So our costs are really on that end versus the more traditional like Facebook heavy side. But of
Yeah. So
course,
I
like
want
we
to. I
still have,
guess I want to. Sorry, I was just gonna say I want to chat about that a
no,
little
go
bit. I mean,
ahead.
I feel like that's super interesting. I feel like again, it's like we've had a few brands on, and that's why we've kind of brought up Madhappy in the past in the podcast. Like we're trying to do things differently, you know, at Jones Road, and we're even just fans of other brands that are doing things differently. You know, we had Matt from Lomi on last week, and I think it's super cool and I guess kind of innovative that you are doing a lot more kind of old school, more brand stuff, more campaign stuff. Seems like you're doing a lot more out of home, less Facebook. So again, I think it's super cool. I think it's obviously something that you're not seeing a ton of DTC. But yeah, would love to just I guess understand your reasoning, like why. Like, did you find, is it just a personal decision? Did you find kind of the typical DTC performance stuff wasn't working? It just wasn't something you guys felt good about. Like what's going on there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we started in the lane of like we weren't doing Facebook for like the first year or two, so we were very used to not doing it.
Mm.
And then we did like dabble a little bit, and I think two things. One, it felt like we were still quite young, and like we have a lot to grow on the brand side before it made sense to like pour a lot of money on, and we felt like we had some easy wins that we could take. Then also supplemented with like COVID and like everyone being online and us being able to really tell like a great story during that time, we continued to double down there instead of like really like build the expertise in house. And again, not to say that that won't ever happen, but I think the campaign side, the gifting side, those things are what we're really good at. And so we'll continue to do those things. And then over time, we've started to get a little bit better at email, a little bit better at SMS, which are, I guess, like more traditional direct to consumer,
Sure.
but to us feel like a more natural fit than a random person seeing like a hoodie without like really understanding the brand on an ad. And I'm not saying that can't work, but I also think our category is quite unique because a lot of the players in our space also don't run traditional Facebook and Instagram ads. So I don't know. We're just trying to find that right balance, and we never, again, say no to something forever. But I think for the time being, it's felt like the right decision.
No, that's interesting. I mean, even for us, we're definitely following more of a normal direct consumer playbook. We don't want to be like, we focus a lot on brand. I think there's a ton we can get better, but we've been fortunate enough we get a good amount of earned media, a good amount of owned media. We do run a good amount of Facebook ads, but it's much more brand and content building than it is like direct sales. Like none of it is discount or offer based. Some of it is focusing on a product, but really what we're leaning into now, it's very content based. And we've got things with like long watch times, like pretty much the same stuff we're posting kind of on our organic channels, like very educational, very story based. And we're trying to do things like you said about somebody just seeing a hoodie and not knowing why. Like we purposely try to like slow that customer journey down. We're trying to get people to join our email list, like interact with multiple articles, interact with, sometimes even interact with a person on our team to get shade matched. Because I do think like if you're trying to build the brand and build something that people are going to really fall in love with, like you've got to slow that down and kind of get some of that story across before they buy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, especially for us, like, we've always like felt like we've been on the higher end side of quality, and price obviously reflects that a bit. And we don't want people to just make like, one, it's harder for someone to make just like a rash decision in that moment versus buying like a $30 hoodie or a $40 hoodie or something like that. And so with that, I think like if we ever go down that path, we'll just have to make sure we're doing such a good job telling the story all around. And I think like it takes time to build that. And so for now, we've taken some of the things we're a little bit better at and really like focus there.
Yeah. Something that I think we spoke about a while back, which I think is kind of coming up now again, is the idea that people that are bought into your mission and your vision when they purchase the product are much more likely to be a brand evangelist, B, to be a customer that's easy to retain, versus somebody that makes a rash decision to buy something just because of the stitching, will ask you for a refund, try to return it, complain on social, and all the things you don't want to see from a customer. So I think that, both from the like not discounting side of things, but more so on the like longer customer journey. I imagine you have really strong LTV numbers just because people that are coming in already, like the people that I talk to that are buying Madhappy have thought about it for 2 months before purchasing, and they made that decision really, really stoked about it and wear it all the time. And I think that's very difficult to do on a Facebook ad. And I think Cody is kind of talking about how we try to do it, and when we do it well, we see customers stick around. And we saw the same thing at Olipop, right? Like getting a customer to buy a $35 12-pack of soda, if they didn't know what it was and why it was better for you, all those customers wanted a refund because they were like, this is bullshit. Like this is a $4 can of Coke that doesn't taste as good as Coke. But if they understood like why it's good for you, etc., these are the people that stuck around. So I think it's like, I'm curious actually, now that we're talking about it, I'm curious, like, what does it take to really kind of slow down a journey. And I guess like thinking about brands like Tonal and Peloton, where they kind of like go after customers for weeks or months and probably have like 37 touch points until a customer purchases.
Yeah.
But I think it's very different than just slapping a label onto a $20, sweater and selling it on, dropship it. But
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, for us, as you know, like we're a lot newer to like the retention game as it's more traditionally played. But I think some of the stuff that we inherently had with like building this like community, having a lot of drops, like created this environment where people did keep coming back. And then now I think we're getting better at like what are the right touch points for a new customer, but also like our current customers on like where should they hear about us, where should they not, and we try to like segment that out a bit more to like understand who it is that we're talking to. But yeah, you're right. We do have to like spread out that story a little bit more. And I think when you do spread it out, then hopefully like the customers you do bring in last for longer and are with you for longer and all of that.
I mean, you do a zillion drops too.
So if we were going to get super tactical, right? Like I love storytelling. I think it's amazing. I love talking about storytelling, but I think sometimes it's like that could mean anything. Like what can you give us an example of like what that actually looks like, whether that's a campaign, whether that's just your normal social content, wherever you're putting it, whether it's billboards, like how do you think about storytelling? What is the story you're trying to tell? And like tactically, what's it actually look like for the customer?
Yeah, for sure. So our out of home is not a good example of it because like that's been more like in partnership with Outfront. We just do sort of like PSAs around mental health with great messaging, not very product led, but we think that's just more of like
Okay.
a brand halo thing. But yeah,
But
for us, it's
that's
meant
story
like
as well.
yeah, for sure, and I think it does have impact. But I think on a campaign by campaign basis, usually we're doing around like 2 different drops a month, and so for each of those,
Okay.
it'll be sort of its own story. It could be a Madhappy outdoor story, and it's really focused on that and like the connection between outdoors and mental health, and then that'll be layered with a couple of things, both on the photography and video side, the actual specs on the product side, and then like content, whether it's like influencer related content like that trip you talked about, or someone on the podcast talking about the release or something of that sort. And then all that first starts on Instagram and then goes to like email and SMS and our other channels. So like that's a typical flow for us. Yeah.
If you're growing fast, just like we are, you know exactly how hard cash flow management can be. You've got customers to acquire, you've got ads to fund, you've got inventory to finance, especially if you don't want to dilute yourself by raising a round. What options do you have? Enter Wayflyer. With Wayflyer, you can get fast, flexible funding from $10K to $20 million at the best possible rates. No collateral, no dilution, just the funding you need to improve your working capital and help you grow your business. Join the thousands of businesses using Wayflyer to fund their growth. Go to wayflyer.com/pod to learn more.
People are going crazy on Twitter about the Curb collab. You did the Disney collab. Do you ever kind of think about going back and doing something a second time, or are you just a one and done in the collab side of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we do think about it. We're definitely open to it if there's more of a story to tell there. I think Curb was such a good example of the first one we did was like the day COVID started and was like a super small thing at an interesting time. And so I think there was the opportunity to do something bigger and better the next time. But I think it just depends on the partner, the moment in time, and all of those pieces. So that's typically how we approach it. But yeah, it's been an interesting road, and we're trying to find like the right cadence, the right number of partners per year, which ones we can build deeper with, and some of those pieces, as we think about the long term.
I think we lost Cody, which is more fun for me because now I have more questions I can ask. Do you have like a laundry list of people that have reached out to you and you're choosing, or do you have a list of people that you're kind of going after? I mean, you've done like all different sides of the gamut. You've done like a pizza store collab and it's not like a specific niche you're going after, it seems.
Yeah, I think I think the whole point is to do a bunch of different stuff in different spaces, maybe things that are just like more unique or less done. And so for us, we have a bunch that we want to work with, a bunch hit us up as well, and we just find like the right ones that make sense at different times of the year. So that's really how we've approached it so far.
How did the curb one come about?
The curb one, we were working on this interesting concept that was actually going to be like Latte Larry's physical weekend store in LA in March of 2020. And that ended up getting canceled because of COVID. So it ended up being an online only release. And then we worked together on the next season as well to just like tell a little bit of a bigger story. And that was also super cool. And, that team approached us at the beginning, but then we had this idea to do it like in a bigger way, which was unique and awesome.
And what makes you decide where you want to pop up? Like a pop up versus a full store versus like, is your LA store permanent right now?
So our LA store right now is technically a longer term pop up, but we are working on our first flagship in LA. So that's underway as well. And
where's that going to be?
The other markets, it's going to be on Melrose as well. Cool. So super close to where we have that one now. We have a few pop-ups open in the LA area at the moment. And then the other ones like New York, Aspen, Miami, all the other ones we've done before, like if the market makes sense, eventually we'll do like a flagship for it. But for now, we like the temporary nature of them.
And what makes you decide, what makes you decide would you ever do a Madhappy Nashville or Austin, or like what makes you decide to choose the city?
That's a really good question. I think, I think for me, the way that we think about it is, one, where our customer is. Two, I think like where we've started developing like a physical presence over time and like investing more there versus like one-offs. And then for the other markets that we have an audience, I think we'll find the right way to come there in due time.
Mm-hmm. So LA flagship, and then next thinking about a New York flagship.
Yeah, I think those will be our first two flagships for sure.
Oh gosh, sounds like trouble for me. I'm gonna go broke before the Philly flagship. I hear you. And then in terms of Cody's back. In terms of drop cadence, like how difficult is it to keep up a drop every 2 weeks? Because it seems like a ton of fucking work.
Yeah, definitely. Also on that end, we're trying to find the right balance of like how do you come out with enough product that we feel like makes sense for us, not too much, not too often in terms of messaging to the audience. And I think we have a lot of work to do there. We've gotten pretty good at this like 2 a month-ish cadence, sometimes 3 a month, but it is tough, and I think we are trying to find like what is like the right balance in the long run for that.
Cody, I think what Cody and I have chatted about a couple of months back when I started is like year one, like Bobby has, done this. Bobby Brown Cosmetics has been in the business for a bunch of years and now is kind of building her new brand. And the first couple of years, like the first 2 years, she was just kind of launching something every month or 2 products a month. And now we've gotten to a phase where, like we have a full line, and now we're like, we do limited editions, and we're kind of like, we have.
What are you talking? We got 2 launches this month. I feel like we got like 2 launches every month.
I know, but
we're trying to get
it's
to
going to slow down,
a more sustainable level. Yeah, I mean, ideal like normal brands, I think, are doing like 4 times a year. So maybe it's different because it's part of your strategy. Like I feel like it's sometimes hard for the team to focus on some of like the evergreen stuff that we would like to, like just optimizing, website, optimizing ads, optimizing email stuff, working on brand stuff that's not like actually more storytelling. That's not just product, because a lot of our product is not very storytelling based. It's just, here, you guys asked for this product, Here it is. But I feel like it would be a really good opportunity. Like, how do you guys find that balance between always having to focus on that drop and then do things that are a little bit like longer?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and always a challenge for us, because we have so many drops. I think we've gotten really, really, really good at the drops, but less good at everything else. Like you
Okay.
said, the more evergreen stuff. How are we thinking about website, email, SMS, the journey, all of those pieces? And yeah, just transparently, we're trying to figure out like how do we find that balance more so we can put more effort towards that. And it's just an ongoing process there.
Yeah. How far ahead of time for like drops are you guys working? I'm just curious. As a brand that we're trying to do better, but we're very last minute, like how far ahead of time are you trying to have everything done and planning out like every drop?
Yeah, it's pretty close. I think for us, like it depends per project because sometimes we're working with a partner and the project's a lot longer lead time. So luckily for those, we're ahead, but we're usually like no more than a month out on content.
Okay.
Like a month out on content would be like amazing for a new drop. But it depends, and it's been a weird 2 years just given everything.
For sure. That's where we're trying to get to as well. Trying to get to a month, but maybe a few months. So a big topic and always a debate in kind of the growth performance marketing world is attribution, right? And as I think more brands are getting into relying less on Facebook, I think it's becoming, I guess, a little bit more difficult. I'm just curious with a lot of the brand marketing stuff that you guys are doing, a lot of the, the social, the gifting, influencer stuff, a lot of the billboards and just in the events. What's your take on how are you measuring success? How do you know if that stuff is working for you? Do you have anything that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think we have like proxies. I don't think we have anything amazing on the attribution side, right? Like Instagram follower growth, like those sorts of things, I think give us directional ideas around how did a store launch do outside of the revenue? How did this event do outside of the revenue? All of those pieces. But I think, yeah, I'm curious what you guys think for a brand like ours that is more focused on non-performance driven things at the moment. Like how do you better attribute where you are spending your money?
It's a great question. I mean, I'm curious. We haven't tapped into any like out of home yet. I think I would, again, it's an awareness play. Like I would probably look at like website traffic, not necessarily sales. You could look at sales, but website traffic by geolocation. So see if you're dropping like a bunch of billboards in LA, are you getting an increase in traffic there? Or if you're dropping them in Phoenix, like I feel like that's one way. That's a decent way. I feel like the events is tough. We haven't done any of our own events. We're going to. Like we're going to look at like EMV, like earned media value, and kind of get some goals there. I've heard, from some people who do a lot of influencer, like that's a pretty strong one. Do you guys ever look at that?
What, EMV?
Yeah.
No, we haven't looked at it, but
Okay.
I definitely should.
I mean,
Okay.
we've been
curious,
using is so we've been on a trial with Tribe, the influencer tool, and I think you would easily be able to see if you launched an event, if you did an event in Aspen, like the one you did, like a ton of people were sharing it. So they have their own metric that tells you kind of like the value of the reach that you got, which I think is always fun to look at. Yeah.
No, but I think
Awesome.
it's something that's important. I think as we grow, I think you can really, unless you're like the 1% of the best at growth marketing, I think most brands hit a plateau unless they start focusing on a little bit more of kind of, let's just call it kind of top of funnel awareness type stuff, whether it's out of home, TV, events, partnerships, and stuff like that. So it's definitely on our radar.
Yeah.
We haven't done much of it. It's definitely on our radar. So I think that's going to be kind of something that we focus on. But I think you see it like obviously Athletic Greens, once they raised money, they did a ton of that. Magic Spoon is now starting to do TV, and I would imagine they're going to do some out of home. So to me, it's something I'm pretty excited about because again, it's different. It's not just relying solely on Facebook. And I also do think you're forced to tell your story a little bit better in that kind of medium.
Yeah, 100%. I think for sure. I think we have to figure out that right balance on where we're spending and then how we're able to like attribute a better at least than we have before.
Okay.
I think especially now where like the amount we're investing goes up. And I think in a lot of cases it's like we're working with partners that help like subsidize and fund some of the things we're doing.
Gotcha.
So there's like the sponsorships element to it as well, which is like sort of like a different revenue stream. So I think, there's a lot of things that can be thought through in terms of like how do you decide if something's worth it, outside of just like the monetary and the reach piece. But yeah.
And what about events? Like again, I saw that you guys did an event with I think it's Open, right? The app, um, the mental health app, and it was an influencer event. Like how do you look at those, and also just how do you think about those and like plan for those? Like what goes into strategy for those, and what do you feel like is like the benefit of doing those? And if you were going to plan one, like what are kind of some type of partners that you do those with?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually do much less on like the smaller event side.
Okay.
And I think once we like open our LA flagship, we'll have like more consistent like programming in
Okay.
there. But I think at the time being, like we're doing a couple like really big trips a year. So we did one last winter. We just did one in the summer. And I think we think about it as like, if we're bringing like 40 or 50 people to an event, then how do they get this like very like Madhappy weekend long experience that they share with their followers, they share with whoever, right? And so I think in a weekend like that, there's a lot of touch points where, a brand like Open or a bunch of other brands, food and beverage brands that we have in the rooms, restaurant partners, alcohol brands can also get involved. So it sort of helps us tell this big Madhappy story alongside other great partners and brands, and we sort of share the costs on that. And I think we provide a lot of value on both ends.
And how much does Eli have to spend with you guys before he gets invited? That's what he told me he wanted to ask you guys, but he was too scared to ask.
He's close for sure, but I think one of the interesting things is like we have this group of maybe like 1,000 or 1,500 people that to date have gotten like early access. I've gotten some like coolish perks, but done in a very light touch way. But we are formalizing that a little bit more, and it's going to be a little bit more in depth, which will allow for some more unique experiences for like our best customers or for our longest time customers or different things like that. So we are excited to do a bit more on that side, and it should be interesting.
That's a great question, Cody. Thank you for asking it. The thing that I think about a lot in terms of community, and we've been talking about at Jones, right? Like, because Bobby has this very, very long story over a bunch of years. There are people that have been following her personally for 20 or 30 years, and we have these like super fans. And we were talking about like, how do we cultivate these people into a community that they can get value of, like you're saying, early access and behind the scenes and, sneak peeks of new products and all that fun stuff. But also kind of like the flip of that is like, if you're in theory taking like 1,000 or 1,500 of your best customers and you're putting them in an echo chamber where they're all talking about the same thing and how much they love it. Like, how do you take that and kind of like let that go on some of the earlier customers? And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, is like, how do I take these like mega VIP customers, put them in a group, and then put some really new customers to come in and be like, holy shit, people are obsessed. Now I'm obsessed. Like, instead of continuing to feed the same thing, like, how do we kind of like release that energy elsewhere? And I think that's I'm curious to your thoughts on that. And is that something that's possible? Like, how do we do that?
Like, what do you mean? Like, how would that, I guess, work in practice?
Yeah. So I think in theory, so what we've been toying with, and I think like when I think about community, I think there's three aspects. There's like the technology, like how does it practically play out? Then there's like the moderation, like who's leading this experience. And then there's like the perks and the benefits. And I think most brands start from C, right? They start from like, here are the perks and the benefits. We'll give it to them and we'll kind of see how they react. And for me, I've been kind of thinking like, how do we, from a tech perspective, and then for us, like, because our customers are much older, like Facebook is where they are anyway, and they're posting photos of their grandkids at college. So it's like, if we put them in a Facebook community where they can share their favorite products, and we can share early access, and we can kind of give them a sneak peek and all that, we can get these VIPs in a Facebook group, and then also give people that purchase once or twice the ability to join this group that they're not quite sure that they're kind of like getting almost like pilled. That's how in practice it would work in our world.
Yeah. It's a good question. I think we've tried to find the right balance of like, how do you bring people like together in that sense? Like the super fans, also like new people, and like how do they interact? And I think we've never like publicly been like, here are the perks and the benefits of being like a great customer. You know, that's sort of all been on like the back burner. But I think we're trying to think more through how to do that, and how big should that group be, and like how does that change, and then what are the unique things that like we could add to that to really like amplify that experience for those people who have been supporting us for a long time, because there's definitely many of them, you included, and I think we just want to make it like more special than just like the very basic perks that you can
I think the
someone.
last sentence resonates to me a lot. The like, we want to make it
What,
better.
the you included?
Me included.
Like
Like the, you know, the very basic perks. Like I think a lot of brands do this kind of loyalty program where they take a bunch of people, put them in a group, and say like, you can buy more of our shit. And I think if you think about it, it's kind of like, it's like, oh, you've spent a lot of money. Here's access for you to buy it even earlier. Is like, in theory, right? Like the beauty of loyalty should be access. But I think exclusivity to me resonates more than access. It's like, instead of early access, how can we give you something doesn't exist elsewhere? Like this kind of exclusive experience that makes you feel a certain kind of way. In our world, it's like, maybe you get access to like a lesson from Bobby that she wouldn't put elsewhere, or maybe you have a product that doesn't exist elsewhere. And I think that's always like, the exclusivity piece is always more exciting than access. But I think it's like the perks and the benefits for me are like always like the last thing on the list, because I'm like, I can just kind of like come up with some perks. We'll test it. If they don't like it, we'll try something different. But I think it's like the strategy behind it is always kind of where I get stuck.
100%. Totally agreed.
I have some other questions, Cody, but I think you have something on your
mind. Go for it. Shoot. Go for it.
I have selfish questions. Like, I want to know when he's making baby clothing, because I've been supporting the competitor.
I know we are working on it.
Can I be a tester?
But no official date yet. Yeah, 100%.
Eli, I don't think you would fit.
Cody, I don't even want to talk about it. I've been supporting the competitor, and it feels wrong every time. Yeah, it just feels wrong. Like every time I buy kids clothing from a brand, it's phenomenal.
Man, I'll tell you what, as somebody who's about to have a baby, if you make some fire ass like baby clothes, people will buy it. My wife has spent, I think my kid has more clothes than I have, and she's not even born yet. Like she cares. Wow. My wife cares more about the baby's kids being cute at this point than like she cares about her own clothes. So I totally think like I could see babies rocking Madhappy like just being a great marketing thing for you. You know what I mean? Just like seeing, because everyone posts pictures of their baby on Instagram. Just have them rock Madhappy on it.
Facts.
100%. I totally agree.
Another question for you. Go-to spot in LA, food place.
Oh, go-to spot. So many good ones. There's actually this amazing restaurant. It's called Horses. Have you heard of it? So it's like this, like, I don't know, like 80, 90-year-old venue in LA. And it was just reopened like a year ago, but it's like amazing, like kind of like Italian-ish food. Just amazing spot, really cool location. West Hollywood, Hollywood-ish area, and I go there a lot. Horses. So you got to check it out.
The other question, the last question I had, what do you do when you're super stressed out? This is a question that I ask on every interview, actually. And the answers range from like eating a bar of chocolate to like scrolling TikTok endlessly. And I always say the one wrong answer is like, I don't get stressed out, because then you're very good at disassociating. But what's your like after a long day, what are you doing?
Well, I definitely get stressed out. But I would say a few things. One, I love the sauna. So whenever I could get in a sauna, I always feel better after, especially if I take like a cold shower. Or just like walks, outdoor walks, especially in like the evening when like I've had like a long day, either by myself or with my girlfriend or something. I think those two things help me a lot. And just like, calm me down, from like a hectic day of just like going. And those are some of the things.
Cody's getting a plunge.
Are you into like meditation? Yeah, no, my cold plunge arrives tomorrow. I'm building a new house and the cold plunge arrives tomorrow. I'm so excited.
Which one did you get?
I got the cold plunge.
Nice. I have one as well. So I wasn't gonna say that one, but that one also I love, and think is an amazing way,
It's made a
to like
huge
kind of like
difference for me.
instantly feel better. Yeah.
It's made a giant difference. Definitely like have a good amount of anxiety and just like chronic like tension and pain, and like I go in that and I'm like feeling so much better. So yeah, definitely saunas, that do a lot of walks. Are you into like meditation or breath work or anything?
Yeah, so I've only recently like tried breath work, which is super cool, but I don't have that much experience with it. But on the meditation side, I try to do like 15 minutes in the mornings. Some weeks, some months, I'm like really good at it. Some I'm less good, but definitely that also makes a big impact for me as well.
You froze for a sec. He froze. I'm a big yogi recently. I go to the studio near me. I am the only dude every single week. It's literally just a group of 12 and me, the one dude, just namaste straight through the session. But I found that it's less about the yoga and the movement. It's more about not touching my phone for a full fucking hour, which hardly exists. Um, so I think that's been my energy. But anything else that we didn't talk about? Any questions for us? When I say us, I mean just me.
Um, no, I mean this was awesome. I appreciate you having me on. No, I think my our message is always the same of just like um, in startups, like things can be very hard, and even for us, like building a company around optimism, like it is hard at times, and there are so many like ups and downs and ups and downs, and so it takes a long time. So I think it's just like people being able to talk about that amongst each other, amongst their other friends and other startups, I think has been super helpful for me. So I encourage everyone to do that. And then the last thing is if you're thinking of starting a company, I think that you should definitely do it. And that there aren't as many risks as you think in starting a company, especially when you're younger and you don't have all these obligations. Whereas, like, it does get harder when you get older. So, those are the two things I always say. So,
What do you do?
yeah,
What are you going to do when you retire? Where are you moving to?
that's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer to that yet. I'm gonna have to think about that. I think I I love nature, but I don't know, I don't know what that means. I haven't really been in one place that I've been like, oh, I could see myself moving here when I retire yet. I love a lot of different places, but nothing's like felt like that yet. But maybe I'm just not thinking of retirement at the moment.
Yeah,
But
how old are you? Aren't you
it's a good
young?
question. Yeah, I'm 28.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what are you
Wait,
doing?
Cody,
Talking
where are
about
you? Where are
retirement.
you
What,
retiring?
something I don't know? Golf course. I'm gonna play
Dude,
golf all day
I
once I
I
retire.
told myself a story for the longest time. Just a personal anecdote here. I've told myself a story for the longest time that I'm just like I love hustling and I don't know how to stop working, and I worked on my honeymoon and I didn't take a day off for 4 years, and then when I finally was at Olipop and they were like, "Sir, you're taking a vacation." I was so good at doing nothing. Like I blew myself out of the water as to how good I was at doing absolutely nothing. Like I would just wake up in the morning and I'm like, what are you doing today? Absolutely nothing. And I'm kind of like, my wife's in med school. I'm thinking when she finishes, I just fuck around and retire and just like wake up in the morning, put on a robe, get the mail, just do nothing.
I love that. That's
I
that's
appreciate the
that's
support.
that's good to do
Cody's
for a
like,
little,
what
as
the
long as you
fuck?
don't get bored. Yeah.
Yeah. Cody's like, no, sir.
I don't think you would last. I think you
Probably
would
true.
last like 2 weeks. I think I would last a
2 weeks
week
is not
probably.
bad. Maybe a 2 week sabbatical, and we call that a retirement. But I think it's been so much fun watching you build this thing, and I've been through quite a bit mental health wise myself over the last decade plus, and it's kind of always exciting to see a break from the, anyone that follows me on Twitter sees I don't stop talking about people stopping to hustle and thinking about their brain. And I think we've been in this phase where toxic masculinity took us for a spin, that not ignoring your mental health is tough. But it's fun. It's fun to see a brand that's as large as yours and growing as fast as yours put mental health on a pedestal, and all the other stuff. So I appreciate you for doing it and being you. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eli. That means a lot. Definitely keep talking about mental health. And Cody, it's great to meet. Thank you for having me, and hopefully we can do it in person one day.
Horses.
Horses, yes. Let's do it.
I'm going to pull up the menu.
Thank you, guys.